Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel, and in this video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous 12 hours. We have lots of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first we're going to talk about the conflict on the territory of Ukraine, where both the Russians and the Ukrainians once again between the 16th and the 17th of May of 2026 attacked each other with a significant number of drones. During the previous evening, pro-Ukrainian sources published several maps where we can see how everything was developing. For example, this is the map at the beginning of the Ukraine's attack, and here we can see that at the beginning of this massive attack in the direction of the capital of Russia, the Ukrainians launched 180 drones, and these drones were trying to outflank and to outmaneuver the Russians in this area, trying to get the city of Moscow from many directions, from the southwest, from the south, and from the west. Later we received additional picture. Here we have more drones launched by the Ukrainians, and approximately at 9 p.m. of the 16th of May of 2026, 119 drones were recorded over the territory of Russia, and as of the 9 p.m. of the 16th of May of 2026, we see that Ukrainians also began attacking in the direction of Crimea and in the direction of the southern regions of Russia. And this is the final map that was published at around 12 a.m. of the 17th of May of 2026, and here we can see that the Ukrainian drones managed to get not just the city of Moscow, not just the southern regions of Russia. We see that the Ukraine's drone managed to get even the Leningrad region, which is located a bit further in the northwestern direction from the city of Moscow itself. The sources stated that this was the biggest attack carried out by the Ukrainians since the beginning of the special military operation. As of the 12 a.m. of the 17th of May of 2026, up to 310 drones were recorded over the territory of Russia. The Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation during the previous night also made lots of statements and articles regarding the situation. The Russians stated that during the day, during the 16th of May of 2026, the Russians destroyed between 3 p.m. and 8 p.m. 89 drones. Between 8 p.m. and 10 p.m. the Russians destroyed additional 67 drones, and overnight the Russians destroyed 556 drones of Ukraine. And this report, this article was published this morning somewhere around at 10 a.m. of the 17th of May of 2026, but the most important thing that at 10 a.m. of the 17th of May, the Ukraine's attack didn't stop. The Ukrainians continue sending more and more drones and more explosions and more videos we are receiving from the city of Moscow, from the capital of the Russian Federation. Let's discuss these videos in details. This is the first video. Here we can see an explosion somewhere on the territory of the city. Black smoke, probably this is the work of the Russian air defense forces. A drone either was destroyed or damaged. In this video we can see a few more drones that were destroyed over the sky of Moscow, and telling the truth, lots of drones the Russians indeed managed to destroy and to intercept lots of drones that were launched by the Ukrainian side. But at the same time we received lots of videos and a lot of updates that confirm that despite the work of the Russian air defense forces, lots of drones managed to hit buildings, constructions and different facilities through the capital of the Russian Federation, the city of Moscow. In this video we can see the Ukrainian drone that was moving down to attack something. In this video we can see a building that was hit by the Ukraine's drone somewhere in the territory of the city of Moscow, and according to these numbers, this attack took place at 4 a.m. of the 17th of May of 2026. In this video we can see more drones flying over the territory of Moscow, over the capital of the Russian Federation, and as you can see according to this video, this drone's behavior is very interesting. This drone doesn't attack anything. This drone just fly over some part of the city of Moscow, probably trying to show its dominance in the sky of the Russian Federation and in the sky of Moscow. And later we start receiving additional updates on the matter of this attack, and we start receiving updates regarding objects that were hit by the Ukrainians. The sources stated that during the previous night, the Ukrainians were trying to attack objects of energy infrastructure, and we have lots of videos with black smoke over the city. For example, this is the video where we can see a black smoke over the city of Moscow, and according to this black smoke, we can make a conclusion that most likely an object of energy or of fuel infrastructure was attacked and probably damaged significantly by the Ukrainians. So here we have another video from another angle. Some object of energy infrastructure was hit, and later we start receiving videos right exactly from this object of energy infrastructure that was damaged and probably even destroyed during the overnight attack that was carried out by the Ukrainians. In this video, with a very good quality, we can see these these fuel reservoirs, probably an oil base in the northwestern parts of the city of Moscow. And here we can see a very heavy black smoke over this object of fuel infrastructure. And it seems that as a result of attack, at least one reservoir was completely destroyed. Most likely in coming hours, we will receive additional pictures, satellite pictures, and we will understand the level of damage that the Ukrainians managed to deal. Anyway, the Ukrainians used once again almost 600 drones to attack the theater of Russia between the 16th and the 17th of May of 2026, and as a result of this attack, the Ukrainians managed to damage just one reservoir and probably several buildings through the city of Moscow. So the local sources, the local authorities of Moscow stated that this attack led to casualties among civilians. Now let's move further. The Russians also attacked the territory of Ukraine between the 16th and the 17th of May of 2026, and the Minister of Defense of Ukraine this morning stated that the Russians used 287 drones during the night. The Russians, as usually these days, were attacking the cities of Odessa, Zaporizhzhia, Dnipro, and of course the city of Kharkiv. A lot of videos and lots of updates were published from this area. For example, this is the city of Kharkiv. We can see that some park was destroyed, damaged with the drone, and we can see that a lot of vehicles were completely destroyed as a result of the Russian attack. Lots of explosions were recorded through the cities of Kryvyi Rog and Dnipro, and several sources published maps with approximate positions of Russian drones overnight. So here we can see that there were at least two waves of attacks or three batches of drones. The first one was flying over the city of Kryvyi Rog, the second one was flying between the cities of Poltava and Kharkiv, and the third batch of drones were flying in the area of the city of Sumy, and all these drones were attacking objects of infrastructure. So as you can see, lots of drones were recorded in the city of Dnipro, but as of the morning of the 17th of May of 2026, telling the truth, we haven't received almost anything on this matter, so we don't have real examples or videos of what exactly the Russians were attacking. Another important thing is that the Ukrainians during the night were attacking Crimea. For example, if we go back to the map that was published by pro-Ukrainian sources, and we can see that lots of drones were launched in this direction, and furthermore, according to this picture, Navy drones were also involved during the overnight attack. So lots of videos were published by locals from Crimea, from Sevastopol, and here we can see the work of the Russian air defense, of how they were trying to bring down all these drones. So as we can see, as we understand, lots of drones were in the sky over Sevastopol and Crimea, and the Russians published a video of how they were attacking Navy drones that were trying to attack in the direction of the Kinburn Spit. In this video we can see a Russian drone that was hunting and attacking a Navy drone that was launched by the armored forces of Ukraine somewhere from the area of Odessa. And in this video we can see that drone that was attacked by Russians was lost by the Ukrainians and was just moving somewhere in the area between Odessa and Crimea. Now let's discuss the situation in the city of Kiev. During the previous 12 hours, we received lots of very interesting statements made by the Ukraine's authorities. The president of Ukraine, Zelensky, said that Russia's simplification of granting citizenship to residents of Transnistria is an attempt to recruit new soldiers and portray the region as its own. According to him, Moscow's interests go beyond Donbass, and he expects proposals from Ukrainian intelligence service on how to respond. I would like to remind you that just yesterday we received the report that the Russians simplified the process of obtaining citizenship for civilians of Transnistria, and of course this is a step made by Russians with the purpose not to allow the Moldova to join NATO and to join European Union. And if Moldovans or NATO countries or Ukraine try to attack the territory of Transnistria, the Russians will have a legal right to respond. And furthermore, additional law was also passed by Russians. The State Duma has adopted a law on the use of the Russian armed forces to protect Russian citizens abroad. So most likely we're talking about Transnistria, and according to all these updates and according to the statement that was made by Zelensky and statements that were made by the president of Moldova, Maya Sandu, it seems that something is going to happen on the territory of Transnistria, probably even this year. Another important statement is that Belarus must enter the war. Now there are only two questions: the direction and when, says former Ukrainian foreign minister. Kuleba repeats Zelensky's statements about Moscow allegedly negotiating with Minsk about entering the war. If Belarus attacks, so much stuff will fly in there that it's unbelievable. It could seriously undermine their position. Now let's discuss the situation on the ground. During the previous 12 hours, we received a lot of very interesting updates and we have huge changes on the ground. And first, let's talk about the northeastern Kharkiv direction, where, according to different sources, during the previous days, the Ukrainians launched a counteroffensive operation. And as a result of a counteroffensive operation, the Ukrainians managed to improve their positions to the south of the city of Vovchansk. The sources, the different mappers and experts reported that now the Ukrainians are trying to cut this pocket between the settlement of Vilcha, a settlement of Sinelnikova, and the river of Seversky Donetsk. The Ukrainians understand the value of this pocket because right exactly from these positions the Russians were planning to advance further in the direction of the villages of Sosnovo Bor, Losivka, Shesterevka, Ukrainska, with the purpose south flank the settlement of Bielый Kolodец and then to attack this city from behind. So that is why the Ukrainians are trying to counterattack in this area. And furthermore, we received the report that the Ukrainians have deployed fresh forces in this area, and the sources are saying that the Ukrainians have deployed 129th Heavy Mechanized Brigade, and this Heavy Mechanized Brigade, having fresh forces, have already recaptured the settlement by the name of Adradne. If you remember, during the previous days we discussed the situation. On the 15th of May of 2026, we received this video where we can see how the units of this brigade recaptured the settlement of Adradne. And here we can see how Ukrainians were raising their flags in this area. And it seems that this brigade continue its counteroffensive operation, most likely with the purpose to recapture positions along the border between Ukraine and the Russian Federation, which most likely will force the Russians to redeploy some forces back in this area. Now let's move further and let's talk about the Borova direction. If you remember, yesterday we discussed that the Russians published a very interesting report about the situation in this area. The Russians, more precisely the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation and the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Russian Federation, Valery Gerasimov, stated that as a result of the offensive operation, as a result of clashes, the Russians established complete control over the settlement of Borova. And based on these reports, we have adjusted the map. So this is the situation by the end of the 15th of May, and this is the situation by the big end of the 16th of May. So we have colored this territory, but as usually we had some doubts about the situation because the group of forces west during the previous weeks, months published a lot of updates about their progress on the ground, and sometimes those updates weren't very strong. So sometimes the group of forces west published something and later pro-Ukrainian sources published opposite things, confirming the opposite situation. So that is why, if you remember yesterday, we came to the conclusion that it's better to keep two colors in this area, both yellow and red, because we have from one side we have a report published by the official sources, but from the other side we remember how the things were developing in the past. And this morning, on the 17th of May of 2026, pro-Russian sources published this video. And in this video we can see how exactly the clashes for the settlement of Borova were taking place. This video was published by a pro-Russian source, and here we can see indeed that the Russians, as a result of offensive, indeed managed to enter the settlement of Borova, at least through its southeastern part. So there are lots of episodes of how Russians were fighting with the Ukrainians in this area. And as of the morning of the 17th of May of 2026, at least one place with Russian soldiers was geolocated. So according to this video, the Russians indeed were moving right exactly at this point. So that is why we came to the conclusion that a 100% thing sure that the southeastern parts of the settlement of Borova is under complete Russian control. So this is the end of the 16th of May, and this is the beginning of the 17th of May of 2026. So we have removed yellow color from this area, which means that most likely this part is 100% sure under complete control of Russians, and that the Russians at least continue fighting and continue moving further in the western direction. Obviously, if Russians indeed managed to establish complete control over the city of Borova, this means just one thing, that Ukrainians, without any chances, will not be able to hold their positions in the Borova pockets on the eastern bank of the river Oskol. The days of this foothold are numbered, and it's just a matter of time when the Russians would be able to force the Ukrainians to fall back from this area. And probably this is the reason why the Russians stopped their offensive operation in the direction of the city of Liman. It seems that the Ukrainians expected that the Russians first would attack the city of Liman with the purpose to take the settlement under complete control, because basically the Russians encircled the city, and the Russians have some positions even inside of the city. And by the way, the chief of the general staff stated that Russians control 85% of the settlement. We're just waiting for proofs that we will be able to use to make changes. But at the same time, we see that the Russians moved their forces and redeployed their forces back in the northern direction, and during the previous 2 or 3 months they were fighting for the settlement of Borova, and as we can see, most likely the settlement of Borova fell in Russia's hands. Now the Ukrainians have just small villages in this area, and most likely the Ukrainians will not be able to hold these positions, because the most important logistic line goes through this, between the settlements of Gorkhovatka and Borova. So we're talking about R79 road, and due to the fact that most likely the city of Borova fell in Russia's hands, this means that Ukrainians lost one of the most important logistic chain in this area, which means that in coming days the Ukrainians will start suffering huge problems. But at the same time, the Ukrainians are not able to leave this territory immediately, and because if they do this, the front line may collapse completely without any chances even to stabilize the front line around the city of Izum. So from now on, this is already not the Borova direction, but I believe we can call this direction as Izum direction, and the Russians most likely will continue their offensive operation in this area. First, they will try to establish complete control over the Borova pocket, and then Russians will continue offensive operation towards the city of Izum, and probably the Russians will try even to cross the river of Seversky Donets with under Skol, with the purpose to attack the city of Izum from behind. So probably and most likely we'll see this operation, because there are two rivers, and if Russians cross the river of Skol and attack the city of Izum from behind, the Ukrainians will have less chances to attack the Russians from behind, and most likely we'll see this. Most likely Russians will cross the river of Skol right exactly in this area to continue offensive operation towards the city of Izum from behind. Now let's move further, and let's talk about the Zaporizhzhia direction, where we have also additional changes on the ground. During the previous 48 hours, several sources stated that the Russians managed to improve their position significantly in the area of the settlement of Vasylivka, and we believe that in coming days, in coming maybe even hours, the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation and the Group of Forces East will confirm Russian control over the settlement. So these are the changes on the ground. This is the situation by the end of the 15th of May of 2026. We had several videos where we could see how Ukrainians were attacking Russians with artillery and FPV drones in the most southeastern parts of the settlement, and later we received the report that the Russians have captured the central, northern, eastern, southeastern parts of the settlement. So the Ukrainians control just several buildings in the most northwestern parts of this village, but most likely, and due to this configuration, the front line, we believe that Ukrainians will not be able to hold their positions for a very long period of time, and sooner or later the Ukrainians, probably even sooner than later, would be forced to fall back from this area, and this is going to be complete collapse of the eastern Zaporizhzhia defense line. And then the Russians will enter the operational space, and they will be able to advance further in the direction of the city of Orechov and the Orechov agglomeration from behind, probably also with less resistance from the Ukrainian side. We have covered most of the updates regarding the conflict on the territory of Ukraine. Now let's discuss a few updates about the US-Iran conflict. According to information we have, the days before the beginning of the second round of clashes, second round of war between Iran and the United States of America are numbered. During the previous days, we have lots of interesting updates on this matter. The President Trump published several articles, several posts on his social media, where he shows how the US fleet destroys Ukrainian or the Iranian drones with laser, with new weapons. We have several pictures where we can see how the United States of America, how Trump posts different articles when he shows in the Iranian direction and showing that it was the calm before the storm. So according to all these things, probably everything is ready before the beginning of the next round of clashes. Furthermore, we have report that the United States of America began evacuation. There are tankers with the purpose probably to save them if the Iranians begin striking back, not so with the purpose not to lose them. And we have reports from the Gulf of Oman itself. Today we received several fresh satellite pictures where we can see how US Navy aircraft carriers and escort ships around Iran have started to regroup in anticipation of possibly renewed airstrikes. One of the ships, reportedly the US Abraham Lincoln, was spotted closer to the Iranian coast than usual. So I would like to remind you that there is a second aircraft carrier, George Bush, George Washington, and most likely in coming days everything will start from the beginning. And that's it for the short video. The Military Summary channel reminds we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.